everyone. Welcome to the show. Today we are talking with Danny M. Kidwell, artist and movie buff. Welcome to the show.
Uh, Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. Yes.
Hi, Danny. Where are you
Hello.
talking to us from today?
Uh, South Florida in the US of A.
Lucky. You are so lucky.
Yes.
Sorry, excuse me. I'd like to start by asking you when you first became interested in art as a kid. When did the fascination begin?
Well, not to make it melodramatic, but I was born with a heart condition. So yeah, that's always a jaw dropper for some people. So I was born with a heart condition, and I couldn't really do a lot of physical sports. So, most kids my age were like running around, kicking things and screaming and whatnot. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. I can't do all that stuff. So I just picked up crayons one day and I started coloring. And then, I'm into movies and just started putting on movies. And I found Bambi, and so I put that in and thought, oh, this is really cool. And then I found out it was, hand drawn by people. And I thought, well, they're hand drawn, how do you do that? And then that question kind of led me down that path of discovering art and floating hand there.
So what happened was somebody's just tried to bring me a cup of tea, thank you. And I tried to shut the door on him and there's spilt tea everywhere. But anyway, things happen. Sorry, continue.
Yes. So so basically through watching Bambi, I found out it was hand drawn. I got into art. That led me to finding a book about the nine old men from Disney, and the rest is history. I just kind of chased it. Never really did anything else.
One part I love of looking at Disney's old films, I remember watching a segment on. Do you remember Snow White where she's coming down the stairs with the candle? And they actually set that up in real life so they could get all the shadows right. And you don't realize the amount of effort that goes into these things, do you?
Oh yeah, they I think they even do that nowadays too, but they, with technology and everything, it's basically taken care of. But they nowadays that's like mocap, and they just put a suit on you with a bunch of ping pong balls and you go like this and they're like, all right, we got it.
Yeah.
Make it. But yeah, but back then they would film back then they would actually film the actors that they hired, and then they would draw it and somehow it worked. Magic.
I always thought it was brilliant how Disney, they were the first ones to do the cartoon run, weren't they? When the legs go before they actually set off. Disney were the first ones to do that.
Oh, that's a good question. I didn't know that. Is that
They tried it and just setting off from a standing still position, it didn't look right. It looked a bit weird, so they brought in the legs.
I didn't know that either. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It's like standard now in just about every cartoon you ever see. Huh.
Yeah. So from watching the cartoons when you're a kid and getting into drawing, because bless you, you couldn't run around and jump about as much as the other kids. Where did you go from there? Did you study art after your level?
Well, I didn't. I think I remember taking one art class when I was like 12, and there was just so much restriction to it. And I was like, no, it isn't for me. So eventually, like, I took different art classes through high school, but like I started out in college in animation, and in animation courses they make you take life drawing, and there was always the joke that the good artists in life drawing that were in animation always went to illustration, and we were brought to the dark side. And eventually, that's what happened to me, because my love is 2D animation, and the school is fortunately keeping up with, modern day animation. And as a lot of us probably know, that's very lacking in today's world. So they didn't really teach the 2D animation classes. And plus, I tried to draw the ball bouncing up and down and it didn't bounce at all. So I moved to illustration, and that's where I studied for about, I'm going to say like 3 years maybe. And through that, I had the illustration club, and I was providing different opportunities for artists to display their work around the city and whatnot.
Oh,
So
tell
yeah,
us a bit more about your illustration club. So, how did you set that up? Where was it held? Was it an online thing?
oh yeah, it was started in the school by years before me, but I decided to kind of take the reins of it, and I would go to different galleries and different places that were opening that I had to like knock on doors and say, hello, I'm an artist and I know other artists and you've got a new business. You want some, it's because it's all about connection, with these kinds of things. And I was able to get a lot of opportunities for a lot of people, but eventually I just like I stepped away from it because I needed to chase my own thing. So yeah, and that's what ended up happening. It was a nice 2 little years that I was able to help other people out.
Oh, overall, what are your thoughts on the classes that you took for illustration and animation? Overall, did you feel you took something away from it, that you learned a lot?
So uh, here here's my thing is I didn't learn much from the classes because I went to a school that they were very you had to go by the book with what the school said to teach. And the teachers would bring up things and, sarcastically, they would be like, I'm talking about it, but I can't teach you about it, it made no sense to me. And there was a library downstairs. So a lot of the stuff that I learned, as far as technical things, I taught myself essentially because I was like reading books and just stuff they wouldn't teach you in a class for whatever reason. But, I learned a lot about how the industry works and how people work when I was in school because I used that time to connect to people and talk to people and made sure I had a good understanding of how things actually worked rather than just, stay in my room all day and
That is
doodle.
an excellent, excellent point. Just learning about people stuff and not being in your room all day, all those things, and just dealing with it. That's priceless, I think.
hmm Yeah, it definitely proved valuable. In fact, that's how I got into the tops. Was I just talked to a few people and eventually I found the right person, and they were like, "Oh, you want to work for tops?" And I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, yes, that's exactly what I want to do." And I had my foot in the door about a month before graduation. And it was funny because they wanted me to walk the stage, and I said, "Nope, sorry, I've got deadlines." And I went home. I went home.
I love it.
So what were you doing for tops? Is that how you got into sketch card sets, or what were you?
Yeah, I mean, so I had known about sketch cards since I was 15, uh, and I had been trying to get in since I was 15, and then I kind of put it on the back burner for quite a few years, and then it started popping up again, and I thought, well, my art's gotten better since I was 15, so I could probably, shoot my shot again if I wanted to. So, um, you know, I kind of liked the idea of exploring pop culture on a smaller scale, because I'm a movie guy, obviously. So I watch these things all the time, and I think to myself, well, what can I do with these characters? And that's kind of the philosophy that I like to bring when I do any sketch card project is what can I bring to these characters? What can I add to them, or what can I say about them, rather than just drawing a portrait? Because sketch cards are a lot of work. I'm sure we can all agree on that one. And you run out of ideas, and ideas are important to me. So, after a while, I stopped taking so many projects because I realized that I was not running out of ideas, but
I know it's
didn't have
difficult
the
to stay
same.
fresh.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can
it's got to stay fresh.
yeah.
Yeah,
You can
and
absolutely stagnate. I mean,
Oh gosh, yes,
mhm.
for sure. So who are you working for now?
um, right now I'm just every once in a while I'll do like a project for Marvel, through Upper Deck, or I'll do like I think I my last project that I did was with Richard Parks, and I did the Ultraman thing. But now I take private commissions for sketch cards. I don't really uh, involve myself too much in the corporate scheme of things, because it becomes a question of, again, what can I do with these characters that'll uh, kind of support the characters.
It sounds to me like you're very much you're well, as we all are, on a journey to find out where it is you want to go with your work and your art, but you're still in that fast lane phase where you're trying different things and you haven't quite gotten to where you're super happy. Lindsay sent me mentioned to me, so I went to take a look. You do motion blur art as well. That's something a little bit different that I haven't seen other people do. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it essentially came from the question of what would happen if I took the 24 frames in animation and just drew them all at once. And it's funny. So many people ask me this question, and they all get a different answer because it's so hard to like simplify it. But it's such a simple image, but I can't explain the process. But basically, like, I found out a couple months ago that there was an art movement uh, made by the Italians, called futurism and
Oh yeah.
that Dadaism, and it's very similar to the motion blur stuff, but I was not aware of it. Uh, so basically, the motion blur is the exploration of movement and abstraction, and how I can make an image kind of look like it's moving on a 2D plane. I actually have started to get into physics a little bit, because physics are basically the explanation of how things move in space relative to gravity. And I thought if I can understand that, I could probably understand what I'm drawing a little bit more, because sometimes it's just scribbles. But
Fascinating.
that's yeah. And my hope is that I can use the exploration of physics to kind of explore the concept of the motion blur a little bit more, and kind of expound on it, and um, kind of develop more ideas. It works great for like animation characters, but it also works great for just regular everyday things. Actually, I'm working on something right now, a raptor, a dinosaur raptor, and I had to like draw sketches and everything and understand how it moves, because it's not something you do every day. And yeah, it just over a period of time, it just kind of became my thing, and people started approaching me for commissions with that name, the motion blur, and then I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is a thing now. So it's kind of like my own little area of the art world, I guess you could say.
absolutely. Oh, it's brilliant. I'm a massive fan of Danny's work. So when you obviously, we've spoken about how you've done your research to get everything in the right position where it should be.
Mhm.
What materials do you use to bring them to life? Because it's a very loose style, and I absolutely love loose artwork. What materials are you using to produce your masterpieces?
Uh, That's it.
That's it.
For those who are
Yeah.
listening and cannot see, Danny has held up a paintbrush and an ink pen, like
Yeah,
a liner pen, an ink liner pen. Yes.
yeah, it's a micron. That and I use some paint, and that's about it. I really
It's pretty amazing what you do with those two tools. It's really something. I'm completely mind blown by the idea that you're using the idea of physics to apply to the motion, and you're managing to capture the motion in line and gesture. I assume you must do a lot of gesture sketches, I would assume, because
oh yeah.
line is very well, it's linear, and of course motion blur, you don't see the line so much. So this sounds like something you could really go down and have a lot of fun with for a few years.
Yeah, exactly. And I have friends that encourage me to do the same, and I kind of agree. I definitely want to explore it more and see where it takes me. Who knows? I could be teaching physics in a few years at an art school. I don't know. I would never think that would happen, but you never know.
Life's funny. You don't know where it's going to go, do you?
Nope.
I'd love to see some motion blur. Like when people talk and they've got big mannerisms, idiosyncrasies and stuff. It'd be awesome to see. Mind your hands are a pain, aren't they? But I'd love to see what it look like with some gestures.
I actually I've had this idea in the back of my head for something of Jeff Goldblum, and because he talks with his hands, and so like the top part would be his face, and the bottom part of the piece would be his hands. It's crazy, but it's doable, and that's kind of what I like is with this kind of thing, you get to explore a lot, and each piece becomes oh my god, what am I up to now?
You seem to enjoy a new challenge, and like you were saying earlier, keep things fresh and new ideas and develop. And have you ever used any other materials, or has it been just that you've focused on throughout your career?
To be honest with you, I've explored other things. I've done acrylics with multiple brushes, and canvas, and I've tried oils, and now I just use the gouache, and I've used the same brush for quite a few years. I don't even know now, but and I've been getting into sculpting too, which is a nice little side hobby to have.
You've been
But
getting,
yeah,
can you repeat that? I didn't quite catch that. What was that?
I've been getting into sculpting.
Oh, sculpting. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it turns out I have a knack for it. That's the one class in school that I could never take, and by the time I got to be able to take it, they told me, "No, sorry, class is full." And I was like, "All right, so I'm not taking sculpting." But I have a knack for it, and I'm exploring that a little bit more. And yeah, I just found what works for me.
Wow, that is
So tips and tricks you can learn with sculpture. Like I did a Princess Leia a few years ago. I never got around to painting it and finishing it. But the way you do lips, it's fascinating how they do it. Like, because the whole chin and the lip is like, it can be an extra bit, and you just stick it on. And see, if I watched the videos, I'd have just been like drawing a line in between them and trying, trying to do it that way. You just can't, can you?
Yeah, I mean, and I think some sculptors do that, but most of them just put the clay on, or they'll push the clay into where the lips kind of form out, and then there's lots of things you can do with it.
So have you been using clay, or have you been using polymer clay, or just clay that you keep wet, or?
I've been using I keep on looking over here because I'm like looking at the sculpture. I've been using plasticine, because it's oil based, so I can kind of go back to it and not have to worry about it drying out or anything like that.
Oh, that's right. Plasticine.
What's stop motion animation? Are you interested in getting into that, or is it more just the 2D you really, really love?
I've explored stop motion in the past, and I it'd be an interesting avenue, but uh, it takes like rigs and because you got to rig everything up, and you know, then you got to have multiple cameras, and then you got to have the software, and so
It's a whole mission.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But I mean, it'd be interesting. I definitely love what like Tim Burton and Henry Selick do with their stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so you would say you're more of a fan of 2D animation than 3D animation? Because I find the new Disney stuff it's a little bit flat. It doesn't have the emotion that the 2D stuff used to have,
Yeah.
and the magic, if you know what I mean. Do you feel?
Um, I mean, I love the innovation that they're bringing to animation. But it even 3D animation still sticks to the 2D animation principles. And but I'll always have like an ultimate love for the 2D animation. But some of these new movies that they're putting out are just you see it. I saw Encanto in the Dolby Cinema. Just the colors and the sounds and everything. I mean, it was beautiful.
Which
You
movie
know,
was
and
this? Encanto?
uh, yes, Encanto,
I haven't seen
and
movies in forever. Encanto.
you know, I'm just a massive Disney fan in general, so I'll go and see every Disney movie. But I do enjoy what they're doing with the 3D movies because I do think that every time they do it, they learn something new, and they can bring a lot of innovation and bring it in a new direction. You know.
Hmm.
What do you
Have you,
think?
sorry, go on.
No, no, please go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask if you'd seen Arcane. Yeah, Arcane League of Legends on Netflix.
Oh, so no, I haven't. I'm not much of a Netflix person. I've seen Stranger Things because my friend lent me their Netflix, but I don't really watch much Netflix, but I have heard of it, so I know what you're talking about.
Well, the
And
reason I
that
bring it up is because, well, the animation style in that it's done like cutscenes in computer games.
okay.
I think they follow the same principle with it. I think it's actually a gaming studio that helped make it, but it's
Hmm.
definitely different and interesting. So I would recommend that to you, just as an animation fan. Just check it out and see what you think, because
Oh
it's
yeah,
definitely.
sure.
Mm,
Hmm.
sorry, go on, Ingrid.
Oh no, this is fascinating. And I remember you had mentioned that Arcane, and I keep forgetting to go look for it now that I'm watching Twin Peaks and all. Totally forgot about that. What do
I'm
you
just always wowed by a new style or something different, and it is very different.
I haven't been to movies in forever. And when my kids were small, we used to watch all the animated movies, like all of them. And it's fun to see the progression of styles over the years. I mean, when my kids were young, that's like of 22, 23 years ago now, when they were really small. And then, of course, as they grew up 20 years ago, and it has changed a lot in 20 years, the styles of animation from the studios and all that. I find it's a little bit like music. It went through a phase, the ugly phase, where it's just ugh, no, and then it's kind of coming. Well, I'm sorry, this is what I think, but it's kind of coming back a little bit more interesting. If I want to get too fancy with things, you kind of lose the what you felt, or maybe I'm just old and don't like to change. I don't know.
Substance. You don't want to lose the substance.
Yeah, it's like the simplicity brings something. You know what I mean?
Mm.
All the old Bugs Bunny cartoons, they were super 2D, like to the nth degree, but I don't
My
know. You
old
felt
cartoon, it's got to be Tom and Jerry. Tom and Jerry is amazing. There was a period of Tom and Jerry in the 80s that the animation was just stunning. I would have said it was better than Disney at one point. Just my personal opinion.
I
But
I have
it
I
wasn't
have
that
this. Go ahead.
it was like that for. Sorry, go on.
I have this theory that because there's always the people who like love Disney, and then there's always the people who like love the Warner Brothers Studios cartoons. And I have this theory that it's not actually the animation or the characters that we like, it's the color palette that we're attracted to.
Oh,
Because if you
yes.
think about it, uh, Disney movies all have these like bright, beautiful, vivid colors everywhere, and then the Warner Brother movies, not even the animation, just the movies in general, have like more earthy tones. And I'm wondering if there's like some part of the brain that sees that color and picks up on uh, the interests of either studio that way. And then, of course, there's people who like both, but I noticed there's usually a line drawn in the sand somewhere, which
That's
I
very
find very
interesting.
fascinating.
That is really interesting. What do you think about color? What are your thoughts on your use of color? And
Well, to be honest with you, I think color is a very powerful thing. I usually only use like I'm looking at my palette right now. It's still it's got a lot of paint on it, but um, color is a very useful tool for a lot of things. You can use it for marketing, for example, uh, and you can use it for to show emotion. Um, but there's also, the interesting thing about certain paintings that people get stuck in using the same colors. Because they use the same palettes, and that also brings up an interesting question: is when people paint, what makes them choose to use the colors that they do? Why do people want to paint in black and white as opposed to color? I think that the brain works uh, in different ways depending on if you use black and white or color, if I'm not mistaken. But it's an interesting thing to explore. Like, what is the personality like? Uh, I'm into psychology and all that stuff, so it's always interesting to sit people down and say, hey, why do you do this? Most people don't know, but some people will just give you a straight answer, and it's always interesting.
Mm. I don't think that people realize how unique they are sometimes. Like you say,
Mhm.
with how you react to stuff and taking information, how it makes you respond and all that. I mean, with my studio here, I chose orange because apparently it's the most productive color.
Oh,
So I did that on purpose, just hoping like and any help to keep going is
yeah,
always.
exactly.
But no, that's fascinating. I never ever thought about that before.
yeah, it is actually fascinating when you think about it, of course, in marketing, as you said, that's why so many companies will pick a color and use it to create their identity with it. And
Didn't
when
Mhm.
McDonald's try and copyright the red and yellow combination?
I think so, but there's only so far you can go with that. I mean,
Copyright red and yellow, be off. So with your work, do you go out and promote it? Do you go to cons and do you do shows, anything like that?
Oh no, plain and simple. No, I don't. I've tried that once or twice, and um, I think for me, I would rather go to the con as
as a
a
visitor.
patron, rather. Yeah, because it's just the financials of it is just you got to take a risk, and plus the travel fees and whatnot. I would love to travel and do different cons, but it's not something I would want to do like all the time. Maybe like two or three a year.
Hmm.
But it's definitely an idea that intrigues me for sure.
So what platforms do you use most at the moment? I know you're on Facebook because my timeline just looks brilliant with your artwork in it. Um, are you getting the engagement that you're looking for?
Um. Uh. Well, I use Instagram and I use Pay. I have a Patreon as well, actually. Um,
Oh, well,
which
we'll
is
take note of that.
it's a fun avenue to explore. But as far as engagement goes, like I have, I guess, a few people that kind of step up to the plate and they're like, "Hello, sir," and but other than that, um, yeah, I kind of just like to do my own thing with it and just see what happens. I kind of like to disconnect myself from it because there's always the question of like, am I creating for myself or am I creating for this
Aha, yeah.
platform?
The age-old
And
question, yeah.
I kind of had to nip that in the butt because I was kind of going against my values a little bit and just creating images just to put them out, and it's hectic after a while because my brain only works on so much juice, I guess you could say, and I like challenging things, and just to put a sketch on there is just kind of over,
Debilitating.
yeah, it's overpopulating things too, I'm pretty sure that just posting things every day is not necessarily a healthy thing either. I have very interesting views about social media and how it plays into art, and I have seen a decline in a lot of things social media and art related the past year, and I think it's starting to kind of phase out a little bit for whatever reason. Could
Do
be
you
because of the pandemic, but
do you think it's also that people keep changing platforms?
um, I, it might be, and it just might be that social media has been a thing for like 10 years, and when it first came out it was this brand new shiny thing, and then we went through the period of this is how kind of life is now, and then I think it's starting to disinterest people a little bit, and they're realizing that they've spent so much time on it that they
Yeah.
want to kind of move away from it. And
Where do you think they're going to go then if they kind of vacate the social media thing? Where do you think they'll go?
to the outside world, because
Gas is so expensive now. How can we afford to go to the outside world?
exactly. But I ask my grandfather these questions all the time. What did you do before cell phones? And he says, well, we had a beeper. And I said, well, what did you do before beepers? And he said, well, we would just find a phone if we needed it. I was like, oh. And now, cell phones are so attached to our hips. And I personally, I will, I'll go places without my phone on purpose because,
Same here. No, I do as well.
I can't
It's nice.
imagine.
It's nice to just be unobtainable for a few hours. You just yourself going about your business, Because back in the day, if you weren't home, you weren't home. It was tough luck. Like,
exactly.
but now we're kind of beholden to everybody all the time at all hours of the day, and I can get, if you're somebody who's not into that, it must be really, really great to go through.
I do know someone actually in my circle of people who they don't own a cell phone. They don't want to own a cell phone. They don't have a computer. Well, actually, no, she does have a computer, but it's not hooked up to the internet because she doesn't have the internet. I cannot get my head around that. But I admire it also. It is. I mean, of course, as you say, before all that, what did we do? I find it difficult to get on board to say that it's all bad, but it is very true that it is a good thing to just turn it all off and be away from it. The inside of our brain becomes a very strange place when we don't have time to kind of walk around in it a little bit without the outside poking in all the time. That's very true.
Exactly.
Do you have goals that you're thinking long term for your artwork and things?
Uh oh, oh dear. I really don't. To be honest with you, I kind of just like to see where it takes me. There
Awesome.
are projects I would definitely like to do. But I think for me, like the main goal is to do work for the fine art section of Disney. That would be like the ultimate goal that I have. Um, but other than that, I just, kind of explore it and see what it does.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
took my hat off. I think that's, yeah, if I had it, well, my toque, but I think that's awesome. That's really, really good to kind of, you're brave enough to take what happens and kind of go with it. Although you do have a vague direction at least. That's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking for the part-time job now so that I can cut back on commission work and kind of focus more on my art because with, with doing commission work, sometimes, you just do it solely doing commission work and it's stressful. It's a very stressful line of work sometimes because you're trying to pay the bills with it. And I said to myself, every piece of art that I've done within the past like 5 or 6 years, like 80% of it is owned by someone else. And I kind of want to just do my own work for a while.
Also, when you work in commissions, by the time you get a bit of time to yourself to maybe work on something you want to work on, you're a bit worn out after doing art all day
Exactly.
long. So that's why you're looking for part-time so you can be fresh to get on with your own passion projects.
Yes, exactly.
Have you ever considered releasing, or have you ever released a collection of your work, like in a book or in a set, anything like that?
I've thought about it, but I haven't really done it. Um, I did a small book when I was in college of like a collection of life drawings, but that was it. Like that's the only thing I've done.
Would you ever
Okay.
want to release, would you ever want to release a trading card set of your own work?
Um, I that would be interesting, but I don't think it would be quite up my alley. Depending on where this motion blur things goes, I might make a book in a few years. Because there was an artist, uh, Disney animator Mark Davis, who was very he did all the villains and he was very involved in just the scene in general. He was a Imagineer for a while. He started a book on motion and how it applies to animation and the physics of it, and they never finished it. And I've got the book open over on my table over here, and I've been reading it, and it kind of goes into like a little bit of it, but not the whole thing. And I would kind of want to expand on that idea a little bit. If I pulled the right strings, I could probably get a hold of the right people to like get manuscript from the book, but I might do my own book like that.
I think it'd be fascinating. I'd love to see your preliminary sketches and everything, and you figuring everything out and just the whole process. I think it'd be a great book.
Oh, thank you.
Fabulous, yeah. How do you deal with you were mentioning, that it can be stressful sometimes being freelancer and all that. How do you deal with the insecurities of being freelancer? How have you dealt with it so far?
Oh, I panic and I run around and hope things work out. No, I I was gonna say I binge eat as a joke too, but that's kind of how I deal with it too. No, I just, sometimes I just do things to do things, and I don't realize that I'm doing it. So I kind of just, again, I go with it, and it gets to a point where everything starts falling on my shoulders, and I just say, enough's enough. Maybe it's time for a change. But it's funny because I tend to I'm just a creative person in general. So if I'm not drawing, I'm doing something else that is creative. It's just the way my mind works. I can't put a stop to it, And that's I guess one of my superpowers, I guess you could say. Sometimes it gets me into a little bit of trouble because I, create problems in my head. But that's, yeah, it's it's just kind of my thing, and that's
So the
and
fact that the fact that you are being creative is what helps you keep healthy mentally, I would imagine. If you could
yes.
not, if you could not express yourself somehow in a creative manner, that would not be a good thing for you, I would imagine.
No, it's just how my brain functions. I mean, I can sit down and do nothing, but I'm still thinking of things to create, and it's just how my mind works.
My family used to call me Pond Life when I was little because I'd be
Mhm.
sat in a room like that. And they thought I weren't doing anything.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Yeah,
They thought I was just sat there not doing anything at all.
yeah. I mean, it's you know the creative brain tends to think a lot, and I I even like with food even I don't meal prep because I like to just create the food before it. You know what I'm saying? It's like I got my hands always have to be moving or something like that. I get antsy and can't
So you would
go
not,
insane.
you would not work, you would not be a happy person if you became, I don't know, a lawyer or something and you had to have a sit down job.
Um. Uh, so I think I would be okay as long as I had um cases to work. Because my brain always the thing is my brain always has to be working on different things. So like I could probably be a lawyer, but as long as there were cases coming in that caused me to like kind of think, that's
Interesting. I didn't expect
yeah,
that. Okay.
We
yeah.
touched a little bit earlier on the fact that you like psychology. Have you noticed anything that might be psychologically different with creative people than people that aren't so creative?
Um,
Good question.
well, I think that uh, number one, anyone can create. I just want to say that first and foremost. You can be an artist, you can do whatever you want because it's just the innate human uh, instinct to be able to create. But there definitely seems to be more of a I think we just like to stray from the path just a little bit. For example, you know, um, creative people tend to like holidays a lot, like Halloween and Christmas and all that. And something that's interesting about that is it's a break from the norm. You know, from a psychological standpoint, a lot of creative people do have repressed trauma, but um, but I often wonder if that is the only key element. But uh, I I do. Where am I going with this? So yeah, I mean they definitely like to stray from the norm a little bit. They definitely like visual things. The whole left brain right thing. Uh,
Yeah, what do you
the
think of the
whole
left brain, right brain thing?
it's a complete myth. Because back in the 1950s, someone was doing an experiment on schizophrenia, and they found out that if they split the hemispheres of the brain, that would stop the tremors that the person is having, and that's where the whole term left brain right came from. So in actuality, we need both sides of the brains to create because one deals with the motor skills and then one deals with the more abstract thinking like color and whatnot. So we need both things. But in creative people, the abstract side seems to be more prominent than the logical thinking. And then there's the creative people who have a very like logical standpoint uh, in their left hemisphere.
Yeah.
So it's it's such a varied thing, and it's always, hard to tell like
It's a,
who's creative and who's not.
Absolutely fascinating. I mean, one thing that interested me a lot at one point was they were doing some research into how people actually think, and that some people have a narrator in the head, and sometimes it's your voice, sometimes it's somebody else's voice. Some people don't have that at all. Some people are just purely visual. Some people can't visualize anything. It's fascinating. So I don't know if creative people like maybe artists. I mean, a lot of us, I suppose, would be able to visualize in our head what we're trying to put on the paper.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's maybe an essential skill that we need to have. I don't know.
I guess it's almost a way of trying to predict something. You're trying to predict what it is you're going to create, even though most of the time that's not the way it happens. You learn to deal with how it's actually going along, but you're trying to think, I want to create that, whatever that may be for each person. So you're trying to predict something. So you're trying to achieve your motion blur to get to that point, except the point where you're going to go is maybe not right where it ends up. I don't know. I find the brain is like a huge mystery. What do you think?
So for me, I actually paint in my head. Uh, yes, it's very fascinating. I do meditation, and I have this thing where like I'm on like the brim of sleeping and being awake, and
is that the like where you're aware that you're asleep?
That's apparently when you have the best ideas, when you just
yeah, and there's this voice that kind of will explain things to me and how to do it. So it sounds crazy, I know, but it walks me through it, and that's where I get my ideas from. And usually 9 times out of 10, before I even start a painting, it's already been done in my head. So I'm able to like walk myself through this. So I actually don't do a lot of sketches or anything like that.
You've already done your sketches in your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Done the prep.
In terms of the narrator thing, is it on a day-to-day basis when you're just going about your life? Is it your voice in your head? Is it somebody else's? Do you have that?
Well, I've got a bunch of people in my head. I'll say that much. But I tend to just ignore all those things because they're just thoughts. But sometimes I will get an idea and just kind of go with it. But the voices, I could go off on a whole nother tangent about that stuff because I can hear them very clearly, and they're people that I know, and just I'm also good with like doing imitations and whatnot.
So it's not you, because how it works in my head, there's two of me, and we have a conversation, and that's how I find out what I don't know, because I'll tell myself something, and then I'll go, but when did that happen? And I go, I don't know, let's find out. It's like a tag team thing. What about you, Ingrid? What's in your head?
You don't want to know.
No. Narrator, is it your voice? Is it somebody else's?
I talk to myself all the time. You can ask my kids. They're like, why are you doing that? Well, because I'm the only person who will listen to me. I'm the only person who will answer me. I'm the only person who understands me. So yeah, no, I talk to myself all the time. Sometimes out loud, sometimes in my mind. Absolutely. But I dream all the time as well. All the time. And I've had several experiences of where you are dreaming, but you are dreaming. Well, lucid dreaming, I think it is, which is a really good experience, a very strange experience. I've tried to do it because I want to, but I have never been able to do that. It just happens sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the. Please.
Oh, it's funny because I have a friend that says like she doesn't dream at all. She doesn't like remember her dreams. And then I've talked to people who don't have that inner dialogue at all, and I just like I stay away from those people because I'm just like, you don't have inner dialogue. I don't know what's going on with you, you know?
I just can't. You can't fathom what it must be like not to have that inner dialogue guide. Well, just so you can sort things out. You know,
Yeah.
like apparently they just see and do or just respond, and
That's crazy.
No, I don't understand it
like
either.
living dangerously to me. Like,
Oh man. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing to know that some people don't have that inner dialogue, and
mm.
I cannot put my head around it at all. It just
Do
And
you
I'm
see,
sure I couldn't fathom how you have an inner dialogue either. I mean, it'd be the same from the other side. They wouldn't be able to imagine it, would they?
I guess not. Well, I guess
And
they
yeah,
probably think that we're all crazy.
probably.
Do you see yourself continuing in psychology at all? You seem to have a very deep fascination for that interest.
Um, I don't know. Like I've thought about it, but like at the end of the day, it might be just an interest to me. There's so many things that you can do. Not with just in general. You could just
Yeah.
I could be a physicist and a psychologist 10 years from now, and it's just so incredible, you know.
so many
Especially,
things to learn and explore, and then you can put them all together and try and make sense of it. And yeah,
Yes.
all
Mm-hmm.
these things you can explore and it keeps life interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
absolutely. Um,
Do you have any advice for people who might want to learn a little bit about animation? What would you suggest? You've tried school, taking classes and stuff. You've also tried going on your own. What would you give as advice to younger people who might be listening if they wanted to follow that?
Really listen to yourself, I would say. Um, because 9 times out of 10, some people will chase things not realizing that other people have pushed them to chase it. And if animation is really your passion, understand that it is a very dedicated process, and you really have to understand what you're drawing. And um, even if you're doing 3D animation, you have to understand and observe and do sketches of from life daily. Um, and because what happens when you do that is you start to pick up on information subconsciously, and then that starts to, kind of create this snowball. So, and instead of trying to master your craft, step back and just become a student.
What would you give as advice to people who know that they are also creative? They want to sketch, they want to draw, they want to paint and all that, but they don't know what they want to do in that.
Make mistakes. That's really all you can do, and eventually through making those mistakes you'll find what works best for you.
That's excellent advice. Where can people find you if they want to see all this amazing stuff we've been talking about?
You can find me right here in my bedroom in South Florida. No, uh, uh, you can find me on Instagram at I might change the tag here, but right now it's Danny Kidwell _artist. And then you can also find me at DannyKidwell.com. I don't use Facebook much more that often, or however you want to say that sentence. My
Okay.
throat is like,
Okay. Well, we'll put links below to wherever we can find you. What's your favorite platform that you're on most of the time?
Instagram for
Instagram?
sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
Instagram seems to be the replacement for Facebook and all that. No, I guess it's TikTok, isn't it? I don't know nothing about TikTok. Are you?
No, I'm on TikTok too, but I don't really do it that much, because you get interrupted because you got to film things, and then if I had an assistant, I would do it.
What about Twitch?
I've thought about that too, but I don't really. I guess I do have the equipment for it. I've got a camera sitting over here, but it's it's a thought too.
Okay. Well, we'll put the links to your website, your Instagram, the most important one.
Yeah, I'm just curious. What is your favorite movie?
Ooh, you know what?
Can you select a favorite, or does it depend what mood you're in?
So my favorite, like all-time movie is Lilo and Stitch, right? Then there's about 5 or 6 others that follow that. When I was working at the theater, they have like a name tag, and they would hand carve the name tag and everything. And I always joked like, I wish you could have like 5 or 6 of these things. You can switch it depending on your mood, but now so Lilo and Stitch like top tier. Below that, it's like La La Land and the first It movie, and a couple others too that I can't think of
That
right now.
went from quite light-hearted to pretty dark there.
Yeah, exactly.
Lilo and Stitch, first It movie.
I try a variety of things,
Do you watch any TV of any kind or stream? No streaming?
I watch YouTube, and I'll do like the Disney Plus shows, but I don't even own a TV. And my landlord gave me the option to like use cable. I was like, no, I don't need it. I just
So you don't have a favorite TV show or anything like that, a series?
No.
No, you're a movie guy, true blue movie guy. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Great.
Hour and a half to 2 hours is done. That's fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much. This has been this has been fascinating. It's been really interesting to hear your opinions and your thoughts on psychology as well as the art. And I highly suggest people to go check out your artwork because it's pretty special. It's very neat. Thank you so much for having joined us, Danny. It's been a treat.
Well, it's been a pleasure to meet you, and I hope to see more of your art. Well, when I'm around, looking around.
Thank you.
Bye, Danny. Thank you so much.